Welcome to Crank the Third. My name is Trevor Young. Now, what does it take to become truly unforgettable in your 50s and beyond? In this episode, I'm joined by Judy Winslow, founder of Unforgettable Brands, to explore how seasoned entrepreneurs can craft a bolder, braver, and more soulful brand in the third chapter of their professional life. Now, Judy brings a holistic blend of creative strategy, leadership coaching, and deep personal insight to the table. And she's here to help you stop playing small, to own your voice, and build a personal brand that not only stands out, but leaves a legacy. So if you're ready to dial up your visibility, make a bigger impact, and express who you really are on the public stage, this conversation, you'll get a lot out of it. So Judy, welcome to the show. Tell us the Judy Winslow story and how is it you come to do what you're doing today?
Thank you for having me, first of all. And I think for many of us, it's sort of this winding road of
definitely winding.
Cosmic what? So that is true for me too. When I was younger, I was extremely depressed and a very dark inside world was quite dark and not excited about living at all. I really wanted to just check out of life. That was my big goal. That was my major KPI, as we shall say. So I just didn't want to be here anymore. I often will say, even now, sort of like, check, please. But all of that shifted and changed when I was about 28. I took a personal development class, and it literally, I say that it changed my life in a weekend, but what it kind of did, it changed how I look at life. And that alone put me on a completely different path, one that I've been on for multiple decades now and continue to dig into and dive from and embrace. And it not only saved my life, but it gave me a purpose that I had no idea would be revealed to me. And it's been my own personal mission really since then to not only empower myself, but others. And because of my love of business and my other intention at that time was that I wanted to be a hippie. That was my other very large goal. You know, when you're 11, 12, 13, this is what you think about. So when I was younger, it was very cool to be a hippie. I had no idea what that meant. In my mind, that meant that I would live on a commune, and which I don't even know if they even had those. I just made this up because I didn't know of anyone that did that. And I was going to live on this commune and throw pots, and they would somehow be monetized and go out in the world. And I was going to not be concerned with money or how to live. It would all be provided as I pursued this lifestyle. So I went to university and I majored in ceramics. And I was really bad. I was so bad. I mean, who cannot throw a pot? That would be me. I was so bad that the teacher thought I was kidding. Like, who lies about their inabilities? So that was deeply humiliating. However, at the same time, I had to take an introduction to design class. And that turned me on to things like logo design and brand development and illustration and printmaking and all these things. And I just found brand identity to be fascinating. I really cannot tell you why, but I thought it was so fun to take this entity, this business, this thing or a person and synthesize it down to some sort of visual. I just thought it was super cool. And that's how I got into branding. It was a million trillion years ago. And since that time, because of my love of business, I also got very involved as time went on. I built an agency, a design agency in New York City. And the way that we used to get work was to say, whatever you spent last year on your marketing budget, give us that budget, if you would. And if we show you that we can get a higher ROI without spending a penny more this year, no 10% increase, no industry norm, we will take the same funds and accelerate their impact. Would you be interested? And that's how we got work. Right. And that got me into strategy and helping people build their business from the inside out, incorporating their personal brand strengths and their leadership qualities so that it wasn't cookie cutter, it's all bespoke. And basically, through the years, I've just evolved through that and have let go mostly of hands-on design. But I help people still with strategy, developing their teams, infusing into their culture and systems ways to grow and to grow themselves, most importantly, and to be a brand leader.
So when you were running the agency, did you get it quite big or did you keep it sustainable? What sort of clients were you working on?
Back then?
Yeah, the agency.
Yeah, so back then I actually pitched I was a freelancer. I was a full-time freelancer at Women's Day magazine in New York City. And I, for some crazy reason, pitched my boss to go into business together, which is really hysterical because the year prior, maybe 2 years prior, she would make me cry. She was really mean. And we ended up becoming friends and creating a system to develop Women's Day magazine. We were the department that it was called Closing the Book, which they don't do anymore. And we would get a book that was put together with paste and glue. Remember paste and glue? And cut up stuff. And we would then have to literally make the real thing so it could go to the printer. And that was a job that took 4 people a full month. But we created a system that it took 2 people a week. So it gave me a lot of free time because then they didn't need me so much. And because of that, I was able to start my own firm. And through that is when I pitched her and said, let's do this together. I think we could do this because I felt that I had the experience and chops to do the visual part, and she was more the business part. But we ended up clashing, and that didn't work out. But she literally has run that business until this day, and we built that business in the 80s. Yeah. She's just pulling herself back from that. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And so now you sort of do the solopreneur thing?
Yeah, so we had a lot of different clients in those days, and I still do. I'm not industry specific. I'm much more of someone who works with a particular psychographic. I call my people my unicorns because they're the weirdos that don't fit in. And I love that because I think that fitting in is for the birds. Well, not even for the birds. I'm pretty sure they stand out to it. But it's not a winning formula. So we all know that great brands stand out. And I believe that great leaders are the ones that create great brands, as we have so much evidence of. And so that's where I kind of am leaning into. So, yeah, I mostly do it by myself. I do have teams. It depends on the project. It depends on how I'm in the project. But mostly I work one-on-one in a consultancy advisory fashion. And that uses my coaching tools and my graphic design and my strategy and my business and all the things. Yeah, it's really fun.
I mean, it's an exciting time to have experience and contacts and wisdom and a track record and all of that stuff, because it's, you can work from pretty much anywhere. You can do, you're in Florida in the US, you can have clients around the world. You can coach them, you can advise, you can do strategy. And, if you want to execute on something, you pull together a sort of a freelance team or a team of other solopreneurs who sort of fit your culture. So, I mean, it's a great way, but what can stop a lot of people is obviously the putting themselves out there and making themselves more visible and differentiating themselves and not blending in, as you say, because blending in is, you fade in the background in today's noisy world. So let's start with the big idea, because, you're about big ideas and standing out. What does it really mean today if we said, your company's called Unforgettable Brands, what does it really mean to build and we'll keep it on a personal brand side of things, but what does it mean to build an unforgettable brand for, entrepreneurs or, leaders in their, 50s and beyond, people who've been around for 3 decades in the professional trenches?
Well, it kind of goes back and forth. Thanks for asking that, Trevor. You said something just now that I think is so important around differentiating. And it's such an interesting world that we live in, isn't it? Because we spend so much of our youth being programmed to fit in, being programmed to be like everybody else. And I was just telling the story the other day. Recently, I went on a trip to Jamaica, and I was sitting on the beach watching the little people parade. And it was just so fascinating to me because we are such tribal beings. And you could tell, this little gaggle of boys walks by, and they all are wearing their shorts at the same level. I don't know what to call that, area on their waist or not. And then, they all have the same kind of graphics on their little trunks, and even their trunks are the same length. And then, a crew of girls comes by, and they're all wearing the same orange bikinis, and they all have the same drink holders. It's just super funny. Like the kids with their hats, they wear them backwards. It's just wild. So we have this, and it's because we've been taught that way, right? We've been taught that in order to be part of the team, part of society, part of our culture, we look around and we kind of see what everyone else is doing. And this happens in business as well.
Yeah,
and then we kind of mimic that. Well, I love my unicorns and my weirdos because we don't know how to do that. So one of the reasons that I was this suicidal kid was because I felt that I didn't fit in, and I didn't. And thankfully now, I'm glad I never figured it out, but it was absolute torture to not be able to fit in, because no matter what I wore, my hair was always crazy, different crazy, but crazy. It just was this, my cross to bear, if you will. It didn't work. I wasn't popular. I was very quiet. I think this happens for us when we embark on our business life. We want to fit in and we don't trust ourselves. So that's a sweeping generalization, but I think it's kind of, if we were really honest with ourselves, we would go there, that it's easier to do it like everyone else. When we start and we're super excited and we have that entrepreneurial fuel under our wings and lifting us, we're not so concerned about that because we're doing our thing and we're living in our full expression. When we hit some bumps, especially if we've been hitting bumps for decades and we're tired and we're older and we don't really know if we still want to keep doing this, what am I doing? It's really, to me, those are the symptoms that you've gotten off track and you're almost, I guess the question is, are you living your divine path, or are you taking on the burden of what you think you're supposed to be? Yeah. And the more that we can detach from what we're supposed to be and get curious, curiosity to me is one of our greatest tools. Doesn't cost a dime.
Nope.
But when we get curious, other things are revealed. What were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was agreeing with you. The theme of curiosity comes up time and time again, and I've done, episodes just dedicated to it because it's one of the greatest attributes we can have. And is it nature or nurture? I'm not really sure, but I think you can develop and nurture curiosity and just do things differently and that side of things. I love how you talk about unicorns and weirdos. In terms of how would you describe what a unicorn or a weirdo is? You're basically saying someone who doesn't fit the norm, and are they people who are like that? Are they concerned because they're trying to fit the norm, or do you get them to express even more of who they are? Let's unpack that a little bit, because I find that fascinating. I mean, personal branding is about showing your differences and differentiating yourself. Otherwise, you blend in.
Well, I think there's a couple things in that which are so important. One is that we are a brand from before we're born, right? So one of the first things to even happen in the womb is your fingerprint gets formed. So no one has a fingerprint like you. We know that the chances of you being born are like 1 in 400 trillion or something crazy. So the fact that you're even here and different, you're already different. So why wouldn't we capitalize on that? And I guess I call them unicorns and weirdos because they're willing to look at what does make me different. How can I leverage that? What is the monetizable translation of that? And there is some interest because, I've also talked to people who are not really a great fit for working with me that don't. I recently spoke with someone and they wanted to bring me in to help them build a new website and do update their outreach and kind of what we're talking about. After a few decades in business, they were seeing that to be more effective, they could use some tweaking, let's call that. And they got it completely. But when they took that to their bosses, they were completely shut down. And when I went to their website and then started kind of sniffing around in that industry, because it's not a category I was familiar with, everyone looks the same. Everyone looks the same. From their logo to their colors to It was shocking. So they talk about bravery. They were not brave enough to do something different.
Yeah.
It wasn't even about the investment. It was about, I think, their reluctance to pull away from this expectation. And my people they embrace that. They know that in order for them to stand out, it's not really about, standing on a street corner and exposing yourself. I don't mean that literally. I mean, just, you know what I mean? I don't mean that, people. But really, but it kind of sometimes feels that way, that, you're kind of letting it all out. It's really not about that. It's more about leaning into the characteristics that make you you. Because no one speaks quite like you. No one articulates quite like you. No one sees your industry quite like you, nor do they have the experience. So a lot of people in my world will talk about that your past doesn't matter. Let's just start from today. Let's start fresh and think about that. But really, the past, your past, and your business's past, and your professional past is not unlike anyone else. So why wouldn't you nurture those kernels and see where you can be bolder and braver just by being yourself? We're not asking you to do anything extraordinary.
No.
It's just being you. That's so fabulous.
And I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I 100% agree. I mean, it's, building, in our industry, the word authentic is overused, of course. But I mean, it's a truism. I mean, it's hard to craft something, it's all about crafting a persona. It's hard to do that. I remember many years ago talking to an executive coach who dealt at the very top end of town and with CEOs of major corporations. And he said, you would be surprised how many of them take acting lessons, do one-on-one acting lessons with an acting coach to create a persona that they think the market wants to see. And I think, that would be so draining to have to do that. And
soul crushing.
It's crazy. It is, because you would never know when to slip into that persona or not. So if the basis is, being the authentic you, what about, do you come across people who need pushing to uncover those extra layers of themselves, to put themselves out there? Because a lot of people have got a sort of a suit of armor, let's face it. And, it's maybe that suit of armor is thicker on some than others.
Yeah.
Are you finding that, when people have been around a little bit, they're more likely to embrace that or less likely to now?
Mm-hmm. I think it's very individual. When you were sharing all that, so here's where I work. I have a system. I have a number of proprietary systems that I've created. Of course, I've been doing this for decades. But I believe I use a term called your twist. And your twist is the way TWYST, the way you see things. And the way that you see things, if we really look at it and we consider that you as an entity are a diamond and you have multiple facets. And it's very likely that some of those facets are not getting really polished very well. So you're not really able to shine through in a manner that would serve you. It would serve others. It would make this whole path much shorter. You would have a greater impact and a greater ability to be yourself while affecting change and moving forward. So we start there with collecting data and looking at what can we use that you already have. It's not about learning anything new. I mean, eventually it is. But in that moment when we initiate, it's really about what are you already working with that sets you apart that you're not even aware of. Because really most of us, the things that are intrinsic to us that make us fabulous and special and unique, we just think they're just goofy or normal or we blow them off. But really, they are the fodder and the material that can lift you so much higher by infusing more of that, not less of it, not filter.
Can you give some examples? Don't need to give names or anything, but examples of people you've worked with where, they've gone through a process and they've put more of themselves out there and they've embraced their uniqueness and have become braver and bolder as a result? Just trying to give listeners an idea of what that looks like.
Yeah. So I created a process that's kind of based on the SWOT formula. Mm-hmm. So, except that I don't believe in threats. So I changed threats to values. So we look at your values, your weaknesses, your strengths, and your opportunities. And your opportunities will shift. But it's highly likely that the values that you have when you're 10 are the same values you're going to have when you're 100. It's how you're wired. It's your neural pathways. So even when you consciously, like I did, shifted my neural pathways, my values are still the same as when I was 11. I still want to make a difference. I want to be a good person. I want to be kind. So the first thing that we do, like I have somebody that I'm thinking of, and basically, actually all my people, we reconnect them to their values. Because sometimes those get lost. And we don't understand how to translate our values into our work and how they're presently doing so. So how can you take your present values and then connect the dots between your values, your customers' values, your team's values, and your vendors, like all of these people that you interact with daily. Let's just look at those, and then your family. But you're interacting with these populations all the time. But when you really dig in, you'll start to see that mostly your interactions are with those who you have a shared value with. If you're working with somebody and their value is to pay as little as possible and rip you off, that relationship probably is not going to last very long. Yeah. But I had people years ago, I had a client, and I don't do this as much anymore, and I really have to get back to it. But I used to travel a lot, and I would do exactly what you said. Now it's really normal. We call it remote working. But then it wasn't as regular, and I used to travel out west a lot. And I told this client, she wanted to meet next week. I'm not going to be in town next week. She's, well, you sure go away a lot. I said, thank you. Yes, I do. And I said, but I'll have a phone and a computer, and we can do it over the phone. We had no Zoom then. She was not happy with that at all. So at the next, when we built out our next project, our next contract, I raised the fee because I didn't really want to work with her anymore. And she took herself out. But you end up kind of distilling down who's the right people for you. And the same thing happens with a team. You can start with a team today, and next year you guys are just completely out of sync. And when you have that awareness, it's an opportunity to really look at, is this the right person? Do I want this person on my team? Do we need to look at and communicate about what's now possible? So it happens all the time. And even a couple of weeks ago, I had a client who he's had a terrible time with being still and creating white space and doing some imagining and creating in his head. And he reached out and said, you're not going to believe this, but I took an hour by the pool. Like, oh my God. But he was, he really needed it. Like, we forget that we need to rest. And there's so many areas where people, once they understand their values, I've had people that once they fill out their values, then we build the values for the business, then they post them on their walls and they integrate them into their mission statement. And there's a lot of marketing, languaging, and articulation that comes from some of these exercises. So they're really useful.
Yeah, it is. And I guess that's putting you on the path. And I guess, part of the values and that prep work is really also, your goals and what you're trying to achieve. And a lot of people, yes, it's business, but it's not always business. It's impact in another way. I mean, I guess that might be the types of people I work with. There's a bit more of a purpose with what they're doing. Do you find that people struggle with that side of things, the goals or the purpose of bringing that into their personal brand?
I think it depends on how they get into the business. So there are some people that literally, they are the founder, they originated this idea, the product, the service, whatever. And then there are other people that maybe they bought a franchise or they bought a business or they stepped in and they feel that it's completely, I remember I have somebody that they do testing for like HR, drug testing and all that kind of stuff. And she was completely detached from it. And I said, there is no way that I personally would buy a business like this. It just would not be attractive to me at all. Even if I was just looking at the P&L, it's just not my world. There must be something in your DNA and in your bones that you interpreted this is doing good? And is this doing good in the world? Is this like, where does this land for you as your why? And at first she said, no, I have no connection to that at all. But the more that we dug into it, she really did get connected to it and start to understand that her values and the way her perspective and vision lens that she sees life through, it really was incorporated into her work. And it allowed her to get connected to the work in a way she never had before, and then start to recognize some of her attributes that were woven into the DNA of the business.
Yep. So that sort of leads us on to you talk about, and we're talking about building a business here, but I mean, it could be you're running your own show and you don't want to build a team. You just want to get out there and be the solopreneur. You talk about doing that with soul. What does that look like in practice then? How do you uncover and express that soul in your brand? I mean, I know there's the values and the goals and that side of things. Is the soul of their brand something that's different and something that's deeper again?
Well, there's a couple things there that you said. So first of all, I don't really work with that many solopreneurs anymore. I work with most people have a team and they're scaling.
Yep.
But what I find is that, yes, I believe that your brand is the soul of your business. And the way that I describe it is, it's kind of like having a child, except you get to decide everything about this child. You want the kid to have blue eyes? Done. You want a kid that has blonde hair? Perfect. You prefer blue hair? Got that too. Whatever you want. So we are creating this entity, this thing, and we get to decide what is it like. If it was a living, breathing thing, which by the way it is, in my opinion, then what does that mean? What are its beliefs? What are its tenets? What is its mission? What is its purpose? What do you see that when will it start to walk? Who will it be when it grows up? Like to me, those are all elements that are related to your soul and related to the essence of who you are. And your brand, the job of your brand is to express that. Like I call them Judy-isms. And one of the things that I say a lot is, we get to design our path forward and we get to decide what our recipe for success is. And your brand is the biggest opportunity for full self-expression as an adult. Where else do we get to really share and be? It's through work. I just read a statistic that we work something like 90,000 hours in our lifetime. So wouldn't you want to bring a little bit of artistry and soul to that?
Yeah. And again, if you're running your own show, you've got more scope to do that.
Yeah. And as you bring in on teams, most people, even when they're running their own show, they have somebody. They have a VA or they have an advisor or they have a coach. And what is the role of any of those humans on your team is to help you evoke the best interpretation of what you're up to. You still need to be posting. You still need to be sharing. How do you like to share? That's the first question. Not everyone wants to do a podcast. Some people want to write. I'm a speaker and a trainer. Some people they shudder at the thought, right? Yeah. So then that's not for them. So the first thing is, what would you really enjoy? What's the point of doing this if you're not enjoying it while you're earning an income? There should be a direct ratio, in my opinion, between your revenue and your relationship to enjoying your work. If you're not enjoying your work, we need to have a look at that.
So when it comes to branding, and a lot of people think it's your logo, and you would have come across this all the time. And of course it's not. And we've just spent half an hour talking about we haven't even mentioned colors and logos and the creative side or the creative expression of your brand, whether it's a personal brand and people have got websites and they are the brand and it's either in their name, or they might have a name of a company, or they might, have a team working with them, or, they run a practice either as a solo operator or they employ people. Walk me through where you see that creative expression or the visual, let's say the visual expression when does that come into the process, the visual expression of your brand? So that will be your colors and, yes, a logo and a website. And obviously today, you might have a YouTube channel or you might have a podcast or you might do all of these things. How do they fit into the mix? There's a lot of questions there. Let's start with the connecting the dots. At which point do you bring the visual expression of your brand?
Yeah, wow. So that is a big question because it kind of depends. So, at the beginning we spoke about kind of different populations. So there's the people who have been at it for a number of years, and they usually when we connect, that's already been handled. Yep. Sometimes when people come to me, it's because they think they need a rebrand. Yes. And they think that in order to really move to the next level, what would be fabulous is if they could kind of start over. Sometimes when I do my diagnostic, that is legit, and oftentimes it is not. So it kind of depends on where they are in their trajectory. If they're just getting started, my advice is to get started, to not get hung up in your color, because you don't know yet. Unless you're super, super, super determined and clear and you like this color and you hate all the other colors and you're really clear. Most people are not. And there's so many ways to generate. I mean, when I started in this field, it was thousands and thousands of dollars to get a logo design. And now you can buy one down the street for $5. $5. It's just not, we don't live in that world anymore. So it kind of depends on your priorities. But really, usually the best place to get started is to get started and to have a couple clients that you can bounce some things off of. One of the exercises that I often share that's super easy to do, especially when you're getting started, is something I call the power of two. And you ask two people that are colleagues, two vendors, two clients, two family members, and two friends, and ask them to use verbiage. What are 3 to 5 words that you would use to describe me? And from that, you can start to see some patterns. You can use those words for marketing. There's all sorts of ways that are sort of easy to lean into and to excavate, but are really actually have a lot of power and personality when you start to apply them. And then when I work with people who are further along, what I find is that oftentimes they've become a bit disconnected from that initial early vision and interest. So we look at, does it still apply? Is it really time to rebrand? Or is there other low-hanging fruit that we could tweak and play with and just rework, if you will, so that your soul and the facets of that diamond are shining brighter? And oftentimes that is the case, and rebranding isn't what's necessary, but there may be another way to relaunch or respeak or reframe, or repackage.
I like the that exercise where you do ask people what they think about you, basically, or the words to describe you. And it's interesting because if the words people are coming back with are not how you see yourself or whatever, there's a disconnect there as well. And, are you putting out the wrong vibe, I guess, I mean, it's not an exact science, but how many times do you see that? I mean, as you say, your brand is how other people perceive you, and branding is, trying to influence that. And you've got to have all the I's, what is it? The I's dotted and the T's crossed.
But then there's also a part of, are they projecting what they like, how do you distinguish, is that really about me or is that more about them? So there's that. But what's really great is that sometimes there's very specific verbiage that will show you, it may not be how you see yourself. It may be, as you said, how others see you. And that's super valuable because we need to know how other people see us. That's a huge part of your brand. So there are these distinctions between how we see ourselves, which may be less effective than you really are in the world. Your friends, all those people may see you as highly effective. Well, then how are you expressing that they are coming to that conclusion? Again, use your curiosity. We lean into that. We take it apart. And that's why I call it's brandology. It's the art and science. So collecting data all the time is really critical, no matter where we are.
Yeah. And just just tying a bow around the creative side or the visual expression side. I mean, you get photos, you've got your website. Now as I said, you've got your social media channels. You need alignment on all of those things. And I guess, it has to be relating, if you're someone who's quite dour and, you're in a corporate environment and you're happy to be seen as kind of grey and, you aren't, out there, then, there's no point coming in with, pink polka dots and stuff like that. But I'm sure that there are people too who you mentioned earlier that you're working with one company or you're researching one company and they look like everyone else. And I think that's where the opportunity is to differentiate yourself a lot more in terms of what visual mechanics, I guess, can you use to differentiate your brand and what it is you do from everyone else who looks exactly the same. And then obviously to be able to carry that across all your channels, of which we have myriad of them today.
Well, even that's important though, Trevor. Of course, so one of the things that my own personal pet peeve is when people post the same thing on all channels because they're really not the same. So my voice on LinkedIn is different than my voice on Facebook, which is different than how I show up on Instagram. And when you're just blanketly posting the same stuff everywhere, I think that's a really big missed opportunity. And it's an incorrect expression of your brand's fabulosity. Like when I'm on Facebook, I'm much more personal than when I'm on LinkedIn, when I'm much more businesslike. If I post the same thing on both platforms and I'm really being more chatty, I can see it in the feedback, in the clicks. If you pay attention, which I encourage greatly, then you can see all this play out. And there are places where you could wear pink polka dots. It just depends on the culture. It depends on the corporation. It depends on the environment. And there are other places where everyone is wearing the same thing and that's what's expected. So we have to do something different. Are you going to wear a teal tie when everyone else is wearing, their basic whatever? And are you going to have fun socks? Like we have all these tells.
Yep. Yeah.
And have to capitalize on those.
It's interesting that you brought up about the social media and someone will say, well, that's being disingenuous. You're being inauthentic. Well, you're not, because it's still you. It's just you're bringing a different side of you. I mean, the spirit of your story and your message and the way you talk won't change. It's just the nuance of doing it and fitting in with those, as you said, Facebook's like, it's friends and family. I mean, it's supposed to be different to LinkedIn. Obviously, we're seeing a few people on LinkedIn now who think it is Facebook, and there's a bit of blurring of the lines. But ultimately, you can juggle and treat each channel in the way that it should be treated because of the audience and the nuances of those channels. But you can still be you. You can still be who you are, and just be aware of different audiences.
I mean, we all have a different tone depending on who we're with. We speak differently in the company of our friends than we do in the company of our parents, for instance. Yes. We speak differently at school than we do out of school. So it's a very similar perspective, really. It is.
No, it's a really good point. And before we finish up, I want to look at the TEDx side of things. So walk us through your involvement with TEDx and obviously a great brand about advancing ideas around the world. What's your involvement with TEDx? And let's start with that bit, and then because I've got another couple of questions on top of that.
Well, quite a while ago in 2011, so I call myself a TED head. That's what I call us groupies. And so I've been a TED head for a very long time. So in 2011, I founded my area's TEDx called TEDx Sarasota. And I don't run that event anymore. However, as part of being an organizer, I would find speakers and my team would also find speakers, but I would do most of the coaching and curating and the run of show and all that sort of thing. And through that, I learned very well, and it was my joy to help people craft their talks, which I still do. That part of it I still do, because I feel so strongly that it is a huge opportunity for your brand. But there's different elements of a TEDx. And so the first one is what is this idea worth spreading? That's their tagline. So we have to figure out, how do we share your story so that it relates in context to your work and then becomes either the foundational, your signature talk, basically, or can we take that same intention and then work with it and make it malleable enough to go across other platforms? And so that's where, so I have a client who recently, and working on a TED Talk is not like any other talk. It is very challenging. It can be very difficult to take all of your expertise and squish it into 12, 15, 18 minutes. It's not an easy task. And then to do so powerfully with the elements that are really required to have it live as a TED Talk. It's a very particular style. It can be very challenging. But once you have that talk, I've had people take that main talk and use it in so many iterations and use it as a launch pad for so many other talks that it's allowed them to be so comfortable and so powerful. And it's really beautiful because it's a level of self-articulation that we don't normally spend so much time and energy on. And its impact can be so huge. So, when I watch
it is
millions of views, it's very exciting.
Oh, absolutely. And, if I recall correctly, I mean, Simon Sinek grew from that. That was his launch pad. Yeah. Brene Brown. I mean, there's so many, but even at a more micro level or a community level, same deal. I mean, it carries weight. It's got gravitas.
Oh, yes.
And as you say, the fact that you can take, obviously years of wisdom around one idea and being able to package that. But the same thinking can go, whether you're going to do a talk at an industry event or something like that. I mean, the same thinking still applies, is how can I convey this big idea and package it in such a way that it's going to be compelling and valuable for the audience.
Well, and it's interesting because that is one of the challenges, because even professional speakers that I've worked with, they're so used to really developing their talk. It's more of a pitch than a talk. And that is not okay in a TEDx format. You have to realize, and it's true, I believe, without any kind of talk, is that if you're really turning on the audience and you are bringing home some very scintillating information, even if it's completely out of the realm of their interests, you will be so turned on that you will not be able to help but start looking them up and start, seeing who they really are. And the truth is, Simon Sinek, if you go back and look at his original talk that launched him into the stratosphere, it's in a small room. He's got this teeny little whiteboard. It's
shocking video. Out of all the TED videos, it's probably the worst produced. It just goes to show that it's the power of the idea. Yeah, I've always tried to find a better version of that video when I needed to show it, and it doesn't exist. There
is a better one because he replicated it on the main stage at TED. Yeah, I was there.
Okay.
Yeah, but the original, it's junk.
Oh. It's, it wasn't, he had the flip chart, didn't he?
He had the flip chart. And I have people come to me and they're like, well, where are the biggest TEDx's that I should apply to? And the truth is, it doesn't matter where you talk. I prefer that you not speak at an educational institution, because usually the people that are coming to those are within that institution. So if you can, Simon did it. It was at a university. And Brene too. Brene, she's a researcher. She didn't launch on the TED stage. That's not how it works. So, it's quite a process. It's really exciting to be a part of. It's also really intense.
Yes, I can imagine. But it is, the key takeaway, it is the power of an idea. And, part of your branding is your ideas. And, is there one that's going to launch you on a bigger stage? It doesn't necessarily have to be TED, but a good idea will travel and can be articulated and packaged and communicated across multiple channels over a long period of time. And and
I think one of the takeaways for your people is that one of the big things that we do during that process is we try to pull out as many stories as we can think of that might pertain to the TED Talk. And so we are going to distill that down to a couple, but now you've got this library of stories that you can insert and take out and move around. So the intention with any of my work is that you have a super high ROI on your investment, time and money, so that when you, at the end of it, you have all these moving parts that now when they ask you down the street to come talk to their organization, you can just say, oh, I think this story might be a little more palatable for that environment. Let me use that instead. But now you've built the structure, you've built it all, and I help people really see how easy it is to mix and match so that it becomes an original talk no matter where they are.
That's kind of nice way to sort of finish off. It's closing the loop because we start off talking about, your uniqueness and what makes you different and your experiences. And particularly when you are an experienced entrepreneur or professional and been around for decades, then you've got so many stories and, putting in the work to package those stories or articulate those stories and identify them more importantly, and then being able to tell them across different channels is so important because that's part of your brand. It's what makes your personal storytelling is what makes you unique.
Right. That's right. And it's such a big deal right now. And it will be, I think, far into the future because then we get to take all of those. That's where you get to be bigger and bolder and braver. Because that one story, which may be about you or not about you, but it's about the way you see things, right? So everything is, when you look at it through that lens and then you see how many ways you can transcribe it, utilize it, video it.
It's amazing. We're in a great era of opportunity. Judy, this has been wonderful. There's just so many things to unpack here. So I know we've only touched the surface and skated across the whole area of, being bolder and braver and putting yourself out there and lots of aspects to it which was where I wanted the conversation to go, is just to touch on all the various elements and different people will, I guess, pick up on different ideas, but it's all part of the process of being bolder and braver and differentiating yourself in the marketplace. Doesn't matter whether you're a professional, you're a solo practice owner, or you're running you're scaling a fast growing company. The same kind of rules apply, don't they? So it's been tremendous. How can people find you online, please?
Well, as you mentioned, I'm at unforgettablebrands.com, 2 T's, 1 S. And I'm also all over social. On Facebook, I'm /JudyWins. LinkedIn as well.
Excellent. All right. Thanks very much for your time. Much appreciated.